Good morning, everyone. First of all, I would like to thank the organizers of this session for this great opportunity to meet many colleagues and present my current research. My name is Samanta Mariotti and I am an archaeologist, and I'm currently a PhD candidate at the Department of Humanistic Research and Innovation at the University of Bari. And today I'm going to present an ongoing analysis of a project developed in the last 2 years at the University of Siena, whose aim was the design of a video game based on the results of an excavation project carried out on the hill of Poggibonsi in Italy. In the last decades, as archaeologists, we have witnessed how digital technologies have pervaded every aspect of the production of archaeological knowledge, from data collection to their analysis and interpretation to interaction with the public. Moreover, nowadays the expansion of the web, digital devices, and the demand for almost constant access to the internet also mean that many aspects linked to cultural heritage are transferred to a digital space and received through a digital surrogate, often a video game. And video games have proven to have a clear potential to support the experiencing of cultural heritage by the large public, complementing the current tools and practices based on tangible goods such as museums, exhibitions, and archaeological sites. However, in Italy, this use has been very limited, and for many academics, video games are still neglected media. Things have started to change in recent years, luckily. Development of institutionalized public archaeology programs has had the potential to not only face the interactive entertainment industry's increasing encroachment into archaeology, but also to change the sentiments that many Italian archaeologists hold towards interactive entertainment and video games. The project I'm going to present is one of the very few Italian examples of video games designed for an ongoing archaeological project in an archaeological park by an archaeologist, with the scientific supervision of the group of archaeologists who managed the park and the director of the whole scientific project, Professor Marco Valenti, in collaboration with a video game company specialized in historical games, entertainment game apps. The Living Hill was developed in the frame of the CAPI project, which aimed at the digital and virtual enhancement of monumental, archaeological, and museum complex of Poggio Imperiale, which is the hill overlooking Poggibonsi, this little town located between Siena and Florence. On this hill, the archaeologists of the University of Siena have been working for almost 30 years to discover a long-lasting settlement spanning from Late Antiquity to the First Renaissance period. In 2007, an archaeological park was created, and in 2014, an open-air museum which pursues an in-progress full-scale reconstruction of the 17 structures found during the excavation of the early medieval village was inaugurated. You can see it here. Since the creation of the open-air museum, the same archaeologists who have been excavating the hill of Poggibonsi have been experimenting with reenactment activities, living history, experimental archaeology, and storytelling techniques based on strict philological rigor deriving from the interpretation of the archaeological data. You can see it here. The video game project had to fit and integrate this approach in order to transform archaeological data in a digital playground to engage a broad range of public and learners in accessible ways. To do so, a 3-step analysis was set. A first assessment regarding the public and the content was to be conducted before the creation stage to collect information both on the potential users and the archaeological data. A second analysis was conducted during the intense creative phase, when accuracy issues had to be taken into account both during the writing process and the creation of the 3D settings and characters. At this point, several technical issues regarding the modeling and the file size also had to be addressed. As we will see later, this is still a problem we are facing, a problem that is affecting the release of the prototype. And lastly, further analysis of the project is scheduled in order to assess the user experience and the educational outcomes of the video game. So starting from the beginning, one of the major issues we had to face when the project started in April 2020 concerned the involvement of the public and the co-creation approach we had planned for the project development. We had scheduled an in-depth analysis of potential users to collect suggestions, recommendations, and so on, but COVID happened. So, locked up at home, we tried to work things out relying upon numbers. Luckily, the Open Air Museum, in 6 years of activities, had provided us with a lot of valuable data concerning the public, as you can see from the general touristic trend that shows constant growth since its opening in 2014. The park, which includes the whole surface of the hill, is always open to the public, and every Sunday archaeologists are there in their costumes, ready to interact with visitors. Moreover, special events are organized throughout the year, and most of all, the Open Air Museum has become one of the most popular destinations for school trips. Thousands of students come every year from all over Tuscany and beyond. This year, after 3 years of stopping, an incredible number of schools booked their visit, and from February to June, about 6,000 students will be in Poggibonsi. On the basis of this heterogeneous data, with the help of the archaeologists who manage the Open Air Museum, interact with visitors and collect their impressions, a list of appreciated features to be incorporated into the game was made and put together with the project objectives established with the same archaeologists and the project director. So, especially for schools, we wanted the video games to serve as a substitute tool in case of bad weather or other impediments. We wanted it to have, obviously, an educational purpose for both students and the general public that could explore, even if in a digital environment, the historical setting. And moreover, we wanted to promote accessibility even for those people who may have physical or geographical difficulties to come to Poggibonsi. In addition, the video game wants to expand the knowledge of the site, including the exploration of 2 other historical settings, late medieval and early Renaissance period, beyond the one dedicated to the early medieval period, already famous and well known for being represented by the Open Air Museum Village. Regarding the content, these are the 3 most significant phases of the site that we transformed into 3 levels in the game. As you can see from these reconstructive images, we are talking about very different environments. The first level is dedicated to the early medieval village, and the select topics are associated with the inhabitants' main occupations. So players can interact with them and do things they do. The second level is dedicated to the late medieval city of Poggio that flourishes during this period due to the passage of the Via Francigena. So the main themes are linked to the pilgrims and this famous road. The third level is dedicated to the last phase of the site, and it concerns the building of the Renaissance fortress commissioned by Lorenzo il Magnifico of the Medici family. Starting from the general narrative framework, specific characters and missions were created for each period to encourage the player to explore the environment, collect items, and get information. During the interaction with other characters, players have the opportunity to select between two or 3 different options each time, and each option creates a different outcome and also produces a different reaction in the other characters. Now I will briefly focus on the concept of accuracy in the archaeological discourse, well illustrated by this iconic quote from Dr. Jones. Reconstructions in archaeology are always based upon interpretation, which depends on many factors. When archaeologists reconstruct the past, they do it on the basis of their data, which are always partial, incomplete, and often difficult to read, on other historical and archaeological sources, obviously, and even on previous interpretations. It is obviously ethical to declare on which basis such an interpretation is given to allow other scholars to use or disprove the result. Anyway, truth will always be beyond our powers. As Copplestone underlines in her 2016 study, accuracy in historical video games can be perceived in different ways, as I have been able to experience while working with programmers and 3D graphics designers. Usually developers have reasonably even split between considering accuracy to never be important and for it to be contingent on the game type, while cultural heritage practitioners believe accuracy to be an integral aspect of the cultural heritage video game, mostly due to the perceived potential of video games to act as authoritative sources of information. So for this project, we choose to be accurate, to be consistent with the previous research and outreach activities which focused on archaeological data. I will now briefly illustrate the analysis conducted while creating the digital setting of the project. So we started with a photogrammetric survey of the hill through the use of a drone and the subsequent processing of the digital images in Agisoft Metashape software to obtain a 3D model of the terrain and the correct position of archaeological evidence and the open-air museum structures. Next, the 3D models of the single huts and the terrain were imported into Unity 3D software to facilitate the modeling of the structures using Unity facilities and tools. However, the first results were not satisfying, and it soon became clear that using Blender would have produced a better result. So here you can appreciate the steps that led to the reconstruction of one of the huts, the wooden granary on an elevated platform. Starting from the post holes, you can see it there, identified during the excavation, and the hypothetical reconstruction up on the left. Below the reconstructed structure of the open-air museum, here and here. And here you have the the photogrammetric model, and then the 3D model in Unity. The structure of the open-air museum, their materiality, required the first level of the game to be its digital representation. So as people can explore the huts and meet the village inhabitants for real, the aim was to allow video game players to do the same also virtually and off-site. This occurrence raised the bar and encouraged us to use a similar accuracy in the design of the other two levels, even if for these two other periods we didn't have a similar material asset to rely our reconstruction on. The only traces of the row houses which occupied the hill surface in this period are a few wall remains, often covered by grass and invisible to the eyes of visitors. You can see it here. They're very small. So we based our reconstruction on the drawings made for the main publication of the excavation results, selecting the space that is still recognizable today, which is the area around the ancient main road that connected the two largest churches. This one and this one. This is the road. You can see it also today. And these are the two rows of houses. This is the Blender reconstruction, and this is a frame of the game. For the last level, the third one, the one dedicated to the construction of the fortress at the beginning of the 16th century, the main source was a book edited by an architect who studied the construction of the fortress and provides many historical documents where the names, the role, the pay, and a lot of other interesting information related to those who actually were on the construction sites are reported. For the costumes, we based the reconstruction on some references derived from a recent movie dedicated to Michelangelo Buonarroti, because we thought that there is a good representation of workers at the beginning of the 16th century, even if they are on a marble quarry. So here you have some game screens to show you the final results for the game environment. During the creation phase, as I mentioned before, we had to face some technical issues. The initial strategy adopted for the modeling of the scenario directly in Unity 3D software was aborted, and Blender software was preferred. In the original project, only a mobile version of the game was planned. However, during the development phase, we realized that the quality of the 3D models would allow us to make also a PC version of the game. So we thought this was a good occasion, but at that point, the management of the file size led to some other problems linked to the processing of the mobile version and actually affected the release of the game. At this moment, while the PC version is ready, we are still working on the adaptation of the mobile version for the App Store. We are cleaning the file, working on 3D models and textures, and we're hopefully in the next week we'll be able to fix all these problems. This also made us reflect upon the concept of accuracy once again, and the sustainability of these indie research projects with little or no funding, which often have to arrive at a compromise between a high level of rendering and data management. Finally, in this slide, the last fragment of the analysis is illustrated. This assessment is currently ongoing for the Living Hill. I've started with another game because this is part of the research project I'm developing for my PhD. The aim of the project is to assess the user experience and the educational outcomes of 3 historical video games focusing on archaeological heritage. In fact, while several video games of this kind have been developed in Italy in the last years, and despite the consensus that they have as tool of education, still the literature stresses a lack of significant extensive user tests, and their effectiveness in terms of learning outcomes is still understudied. Therefore, the objective of my project is to assess from an archaeological point of view the benefits and drawbacks of these tools in cultural education and heritage enhancement, involving young students, but also university students, cultural heritage practitioners, and the general public. Thank you very much.